Good. Yeah. All right, thank you. Thank you, Kathy. Moving on to agenda approval. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
Move to approve.
For a second, second by Councilmember Hess. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay. Motion carries. Moving on to special presentations. There's none scheduled. Moving on to public comment. If you have a blue card filled out, we have at least one.
This is for the,
excuse me.
for the appeal.
Okay. Is there anyone else that wishes to testify? All right. Is there anyone online?
We do not have any hands raised online.
All right. Moving on to consent agenda. All right. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilor Crossman. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay. Motion carries. Just for the record, the consent agenda includes May 13th, 2025, regular meeting minutes, approval of Jazz in the Park, and approval of Nisqually Valley Barbecue Rally. Under new business, we have City Council Position 6 vacancy. We are going to be hearing Councilmember Hess.
I was just gonna make a motion in reference to that, but I'll wait till you finish.
Okay, we are going to be filling this vacancy. As soon as that person is selected, they will go ahead and be sworn in and then take their seats and continue the rest of the meeting as a voting member. Go ahead, Councilmember Hess.
I'd like to move that we appoint David Johnstone to the position 6, which is vacant at this time.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilmember King. Is there any discussion? Councilor Crossman.
I move to amend that motion by adding that the council will vote between Johnstone and Russell. I'll second that.
Is that a valid? I don't know if that's
There's
a
a
valid.
motion on the table already for one vote. We need to take the vote. It would either,
But I amended that to a vote between two people, so it's still a vote.
If I may.
Let's get see your point.
It's that motion was made, it was seconded. In the past, we've never done two people at the same time. And in addition, it's neither a yes or no vote at that point with the amendment, which is all we are saying is yes or no. So that's the issue I have with that amendment.
Well, we do have our city attorney here. Would you like to?
For two, I think Councilmember Hess is correct that once it's been made and seconded, we don't amend it. We now discuss and take that vote. If it doesn't pass, then you can make your amendment to, or then you could make your motion to, because otherwise you're not voting for any one person, right? The motion was to vote for one person and then it was seconded. So I think we have to hear that motion.
Further discussion on this. It's been motion seconded for David Johnstone as the applicant. Is there further discussion? We'll do a roll call vote. Starting with Councilmember Wood.
No.
Councilor Richardson.
Yes.
Councilor Crossman.
No.
Councilor Kingiser.
yes.
Councilmember Hess.
Yes.
Councilmember Kaminsky.
Nay.
There's a 3-3 tie. I am allowed to break that tie. And I will. Congratulations, Councilmember David Johnstone. Right. Please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I state your name.
I, David Johnstone,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution
that I will support the Constitution
of the United States
of the United States
and the Constitution
and the Constitution
and laws of the
and the laws of the
State of Washington,
state of Washington,
and that I
and that I
will faithfully and impartially
faithfully and impartially
perform and discharge
perform and discharge
the duties of the office of
the duties of the office of
City of Yelm
City of Yelm
City Council,
City Council,
position number 6,
position number 6,
according to law,
according to law,
to the best of my ability.
to the best of my ability.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
All right. We are now moving on to item B, and Councilor Johnstone, you will be going ahead and voting unless you abstain from anything else on here, which is your prerogative. All right, we have an appeal for a variance granted for reserve at Palisades subdivision. And I believe we're going to start off with a statement from our attorney. Correct?
Good evening, Mayor, Council. As City Attorney, I'm here tonight to guide you through the legal process of hearing this closed record appeal of the hearing examiner's decision to grant the variance to the Palisades subdivision. This is what we call a quasi judicial matter, which means your role tonight is not legislative, but rather you sit tonight as someone familiar or similar to a judge. Where your task is to determine whether the hearing examiner's decision was legally and factually sound based solely on the established fact. Okay? Your role in this limited appeal is, well, let me tell you what you can and cannot do. Let's put it that way. You can and should review the record that was created during the hearing examiner's proceedings. You'll hear legal and policy arguments from the appellant, the applicant, and city staff. You may ask questions for clarification about the existing record and the applicable legal standards, and render a decision that's consistent with the law and supported by the right. All right, that's what we can do. Here's what we can't do. We can't consider new evidence or testimony that was not taken at the hearing examiner's proceeding. We can't initiate our own investigation or visit the project site unless it's part of the record, public record, and I can tell you in this case it was not. You cannot substitute your own judgment for that of the hearing examiner unless legal standards for reversal are met, okay? And I'll get into what those standards are. And then finally, we're not to discuss this matter outside of this setting. I presume that tonight you will render a decision that I'll talk about what your ultimate vote is, or what your ultimate decision is tonight. So how what the outcome can put a pin on that. Because you're acting in this judiciary role, I'm going to have to ask you all some questions to ensure that this is a fair and impartial hearing. Okay. And what I'm getting at is that question, if anyone's had any discussion with any of the parties that are part of this, that was part of the hearing examiner's proceeding before tonight. Okay. So I'm going to ask each of you now, have you had any discussions with any party or member of the public about a matter outside of the record? Okay.
For the record, Brent,
Yeah.
although I'm not a voting member, I have spoken to
Okay.
those folks.
Thank you. Have you received any? Yes.
Was that, I'm sorry, nobody said anything. Was that a yes or no? Like we're going down the line?
I'm asking you, I'm just, you tell me. I don't think we have to, roll call, but is anybody here?
I'll say yes.
All right, so why don't we start you with Councilman Richardson?
Yes, I have.
And can you elaborate on?
Just my understanding on the situation and the details of the number of houses, some of the, distances of where the entrance may be. So there's a lot of things that I can't really reiterate well, but yes.
Have you conducted your own investigation or visited the property?
No, I have not.
Okay. Have you formed or expressed an opinion about this case prior to tonight?
I try to be non-biased on things, but I guess I would have to be honest and say I have feelings. I don't know about an opinion exactly. I try to do what's right. But if I'm gonna be honest, I would say, yes, I have expressed an opinion.
So do you think tonight you can be, render a fair and impartial, decision, or do you feel that you should recuse yourself?
That's the toughest part about sitting up here is that. And so I'm actually in the position of considering to recuse myself or abstain.
So I think at this point, what you discussed and is that you should recuse yourself.
Absolutely.
So do you recuse yourself from the,
I recuse myself.
Commissioner Crossman? Can you describe your communications? Well, I guess we'll start down the list of questions. Have you any discussions with any of the parties about this topic?
Yes, so that we,
Yeah.
yeah, so Justin emailed the council when it, before the hearing examiner's decision came out. So I'm gonna talk with them so I get an idea, as I do with a lot of people, I email council. Hey, what is this about? Let me know. And so, yeah, he told me, what had transpired. Then I went back, I listened to the hearing examiners. I'm on Public Services Committee, so I asked the city, to fill me in the details and the facts of the case and so to speak, and that type of information.
Have you conducted any of your own investigation, gone out to the property?
I haven't been to the property. I vaguely know where it is. Besides the investigation, besides talking to Justin and city staff of the details of, what's going on, the code, those type of questions, that's about the extent.
And have you formed or expressed an opinion in this case about, prior to tonight, I guess?
Well, everybody has personal feelings, but as a councilman, my duty is to, what does the law say? What's required of a councilman? And that's what I have to adhere to, despite what I may think one way or the other of the.
So do you think tonight, after hearing the argument, do you think you can render a fair and impartial decision based solely on the facts and solely on the law without any personal opinion?
As well as a hearing examiner can, I think so.
Anybody else had any prior communication with the applicant, with the appellant? Anything about this appeal tonight? All right. With that out of the way, cross-examination, let's move on. So the scope of review and what you as sitting in these robes that have dropped down from the ceiling now, and you sit before me sit before all of us as judges, is what you're allowed to consider. Okay. So this is what we call a closed record appeal, which means the record is closed to new evidence. You cannot accept any new evidence or take into consideration any new evidence. Your review is going to be strictly limited to one, the evidence that was presented at the hearing examiner's hearing. Two, the hearing examiner's written findings of fact and conclusions of law in the decision, and the materials that were submitted at that hearing examiner's hearing, and the materials that were submitted by the appellant, the applicant in this case, and city staff. This is not a new hearing, and you're not to reweigh the evidence or consider facts that are not in the record. Now we get to the legal stand. So what does it take to overturn or overrule the decision? So under Washington law and the Yelm Municipal Code, your authority to overturn or modify the hearing examiner's decision, you only may do so if one or more of the following is true. One, that the decision was clearly erroneous. Or two, that the decision was not supported by substantial evidence in the record. Or three, that the decision is contrary to applicable law or proper procedure. Okay? Substantial evidence. Okay, what does that mean? Substantial evidence. It means relevant evidence that a reasonable person would accept as adequate to support a conclusion. It's a fairly high standard. Unless the appellant can show that the examiner's decision failed one of these standards, either it was clearly erroneous, was not supported by substantial evidence or was contrary to applicable law or proper procedure, then you must uphold the hearing examiner's decision. Okay? So how's tonight going to go? Well, first, we're going to hear from, you are going to hear from the appellant. Again, their argument is going to be limited to the record. Next, you'll hear from the applicant, may respond with their argument. And then third, city staff is available after the presentation to answer any questions or provide clarification as to what the scope of the record was, and city code and so forth. You certainly may ask questions for clarification, but only what is already in the record, right? And the legal standards. And after the presentation and questions, then we'll deliberate to make this. All right, so what are your options at the end of all this testimony? One, you can affirm the hearing examiner's decision if it's supported by the record and complies with the law. Two, you can reverse or modify the decision, but only if you make specific findings or showings where the hearing examiner was clearly erroneous, lacks substantial evidence that violates the law. Okay, yeah, a fairly high standard. Or two, remand the decision back to hearing examiner if you believe clarification or additional findings or further legal analysis is required. So those are the three: affirm it, reverse or modify, or remand it back to the hearing examiner. And remember, any decision that you guys made that reverse or modifies or remands must be supported by clear findings that are tied to the record and legal standards. So in other words, if you make that decision, we'll come back with probably the following meeting with what looks like an ordinance, or like a resolution probably, that outlines those findings. Once we've heard you've heard the deliberation, you've concluded deliberating, one of you will need to make a motion to either affirm the hearing examiner's reverse or modify the decision, or remand. Okay, and that motion will need to be passed by a majority of council, except for Councilman Richardson, who's recused himself from the proceedings. Just a few words of closing. Your role tonight is, again, strictly limited to reviewing the decision within the legal framework I've just described. Avoid any reliance on personal opinion, political preference, and make your decision based on the record and the law. I will be available to answer any legal questions or provide clarification throughout the proceeding, but I cannot take and will not take a side inside of your decision. Thank you for your attention, and I will now turn it over to Meredith Pinto, who will talk about kind of the more granular part of the proceeding.
Thank you, Brent. Is there any questions for Brent? So you good? All right. I'm going to repeat some of the things and reiterate some of the things that Brent said, but there's other stuff as well. Starting, this is a closed record appeal, which means this record is closed to new evidence. Your testimony is strictly limited to the evidence that was presented in the hearing examiner, the hearing examiner's written findings of fact, conclusion of law, and decision, legal arguments based on that existing record. The applicant and the applicant will each have up to 20 minutes to testify. After both are done, each will have 5 minutes for a rebuttal. At this point, we're going to ask for the testimony. Do we have anyone here representing the appellant who wishes to testify?
I do.
Please, you have, please approach the podium, state your name, and you have up to 20 minutes.
Up to 20 minutes. Okay.
Yes, sir.
All right. Honorable council members, thank you for allowing me to speak today. My name is Justin Linson. I'm here on behalf of myself and many concerned neighbors regarding the variance granted by the hearing examiner for the reserve at Palisade development, proposing 63 homes using only local access point and direct conflict with Yelm Municipal Code 18.52.080, which requires an arterial or collector street for subdivision of this size. Let me be clear, I'm not introducing new evidence. Every point I raised today is already reflected in my filed appeal or administrative record. My intent is to clarify and emphasize the legal argument already made before you. At the core of this issue is a contradiction. The examiner justified the lack of arterial access as a hardship, yet the city, now defending that decision, also claims the problem will be resolved through a future road. If a solution is already anticipated, it's not an actual hardship under the law. It's a constraint waiting for completion. This definition of legal hardship under YMC 18.14.100, Section 3 requires that it be present, specific, and not speculative. This does not meet that threshold. We are asking to accept future development as a stand-in for current compliance, but there is no timeline, no WASDOT commitment, no binding obligation to build that road now. Defending this variance based on what might happen later sets a dangerous precedent. It says our planning code is optional, bendable to fit developers' timeline instead of community safety. This is about preserving the credibility of our code. If developers know they can bypass the fundamental requirements with vague future promises, then what stops this from happening again? You're not just hearing an appeal for about one subdivision. You're setting a precedence for every future variance. When enforcing of the code becomes subjective, the public loses faith that rules apply equally to everyone. The examiner relied heavily on sprinkler systems to justify reduced access, but fire sprinklers don't help in every emergency. They do nothing in case of gas leaks, medical crises, violent threats, wildfire evacuations, or blocked exits in a neighborhood that only has one real way out. As noted in the filed site plan, both access points connect to Palisade Street Southeast. There is no second arterial or collector access. That layout, as documented, does not meet the intent of YMC 18.52.080 in terms of redundancy or safety. And while the city says its position is based on the International Fire Code, it clearly leans on IFC D007 to execute the lack of arterial access. This is contradictory. This isn't just unsound policy, it's circular logic used to override public safety standards. This is where the legal concern comes in. The variance process is supposed to be a legal exception, not a planning tool. In this case, the hearing examiner applied a hardship standard inconsistently and subjectively. Now the city is defending that decision based not on present day compliance, but on speculative future infrastructure. If the council affirms this variance based on assumption about future access or road construction that lack a binding timeline or agreement, it creates a potential legal vulnerability under Washington's Land Use Potential Act, LUPA. This concern has already been raised in the appeal under RCW 36.70 Section C. Any impacted party could raise a claim that the variance was granted arbitrarily without substantial evidence that all criteria under YMC 18.14.100 were met. This is not just plan mistaking. It could become a legal liability. And I don't believe that a risk this council should be asked to take on behalf of a developer. Consider the case of Country Meadows Estate Phase 2, which was denied approval in 2024 because it failed to meet the arterial access requirements under the very same codes. YMC 18.52.080, in that case, the applicant proposed future road conditions, but the city and the hearing examiner determined those plans were too speculative to justify a variance. Why is that standard not being applied here? If one developer is denied for relying on future infrastructure and another is approved for the same, that is not consistent application of law. It's preferential treatment. This leaves an impression, whether intention or not, of either neglect of legal code or lack of due diligence, and that should concern all of us. We must ask, is the hardship legitimate under the law? Are we endorsing a decision based on incomplete infrastructure? Are we prioritizing short-term development pressure over long-term safety and planning standards? We are not against growth. We are against being asked to take the risk for someone else's reward. Our neighborhood should not be the cost of the shortcuts. Please help us ensure that this growth is done the right way, not just fast, but fair and safe. We urge you to uphold the appeal, reverse the variance, and send a clear message. Safety standards and planning codes in Yelm are not optional. They are here to protect the people who live here now and the ones who will live here tomorrow. Thank you guys very much.
Thank you for your testimony. Do we have anyone here representing the applicant who wishes to testify?
Yes.
Please approach the podium, state your name, and you have up to 20 minutes.
Yeah, thank you. My name is Matt Lewis. I'm the president of Garrett Custom Homes. We are the developer of the project. We have a contract to purchase it from a local church here. And thank you for your time. Growth, development, traffic, I know they're always thorny and difficult issues. So this evening, as everyone has been informed, we're not here to weigh in on those larger policy ramifications, but the specific record here. So just one point of order, there was a mention of a development in 2024. I don't know that that was ever part of the previous record.
I think staff's ready to clarify
Okay.
that. I think there was mention of it, but we'll make sure that
Okay.
the record gets.
Yeah. I guess, and I will have another time to come back up after the.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So the issue with a variance, so the point of a variance is when you cannot meet the development code, that is the legal procedure to deviate from the adopted code. That is the whole intention of it. And there are very specific criteria in the Yelm code, which are referenced in the memo. I think it's 18. What do we got here? 18.14.100 is the variance code, and there's 6 criteria. The 6th one's about adult entertainment. We certainly won't be having any of that. So just the first 5 are what apply. And the hearings examiner, in his decision, he went through item by item and had his legal justification. My engineer has provided it. The city staff did an excellent job reiterating those remarks. So I would point you to there just really quickly. We do meet the legal standard. The hardship, we cannot get access onto the state highway. That was the first thing when we got the property under contract. We approached WashDOT because that's always in the development world, that's a big deal. We know that WashDOT, it's kind of like BNSF and the railroad. You don't mess with those guys. You got to find out what the rules are. And it's part of the record. We were denied another access to it because of the 660-foot spacing requirement, which is what led us into the variance. And then with some of the solutions of or mitigation, I should say, of the fire sprinklers, of adding that additional access to the west, which correct is not doing anything right now, but it's setting the stage in the future. This property was brought into the urban growth boundary, it must have been 10 plus years ago, and it was annexed 3 years ago, all to fulfill the growth plan of the 20-year population horizon. So the undue hardship is if we don't grant the variance, then you have one home on 10 acres. So the economic taking there is dramatic, obviously. And then some of the other standards in that 18.14.100 are related to a uniqueness of the property, or that the developer isn't, you don't create your own problem and then ask the city, hey, can I get a variance? Because I really want to just build my house close to the road because I could build a bigger house and sell it for more money. Obviously, this is nothing with our doing or the previous owners doing. We can't get access to the state highway. And the first one, the literal interpretation or the application of the provisions of this code would deprive the applicant of rights commonly enjoyed by the other properties in the same zoning district. Obviously, we would go from, the church would go from 39, the ability to have 39 units to 1 unit. Because of a circumstance that we did not create. So I won't go through all 5 of the points, but they're very clearly made by us originally, then adopted by the hearings examiner, and then reiterated by the city. And just all this is also part of the record. There are some real improvements being made in the area we have worked with WashDOT in the city. We have to put a turn pocket in to access the site, a left turn pocket. So that will help. We have to put in a couple of pedestrian crossings with a beacon. I can't remember the technical traffic term, but you guys have seen them. They're solar powered, and you push the button and the lights flash, and really helps with pedestrian crossings. So that is part of the development. And then one other point of clarification is both the preliminary plat and the variance being appealed?
No, I think it's just the variance.
Oh, okay. Well, I thought there was something mentioned in the appeal about the open space.
That was redacted.
Oh, okay, that's all.
You saw it before it was redacted.
Okay, well then I won't talk about the open space. So I think that concludes my presentation. I'll just reserve the right to respond after the thank you.
All right, thank you. Does the appellant have a rebuttal?
Yes, I do.
You have 5 minutes for the.
Okay, perfect. So we just heard the applicant say in his own words that there's going to be a future build and that they're building for that future. So that's a constraint still. That's not a hardship. Under a hardship means that you can't do anything. This is a constraint. Any builder would have this set up for them and would have to meet that constraint later on. And he said it. Hearing examiner said it as well during the hearing examined. And then also talk about the turn lane. Even with the turn lane, 2027 is when this project is projected. And even with a turn lane, this traffic report goes from a C to a D. So even with the added extra turn lane, we still have a decrease in traffic or the analysis. Public safety, that's not something that was brought up in my speech, but it was hammered hard on in my appeal. There's something that is still there. The variance fails to meet the public safety test, welfare test. In YMC 18.14.100, section 4. Sprinklers do not address bottlenecking, blocked emergency access, or traffic congestion. This was during the public hearing and the hearing examiner. Thank you.
Thank you. Does the applicant have a rebuttal? You have 5 minutes, sir.
Yes, thank you. I guess the appellant's calling it a constraint versus a hardship. A constraint would be there's additional environmentally sensitive areas on the property and I need to provide the adequate buffers. And so instead of getting 40 lots, I'm getting 30 lots. That's a constraint. Not being able to meet the letter of the code because WashDOT won't give you an access and going from 39 to 1, that's not a constraint. That is a hardship as defined by the code that would justify the variance. That's all I have.
Thank you. All right. Moving on then to a council discussion. Or excuse me, is there a staff?
Yeah, I think Andrews.
We have a staff testimony, please.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Just want to correct a couple things that were stated first of all. So it'll be 39 new lots, equaling 63 total. There was a WASDOT commitment to a future access along the undeveloped parcels. And without this development being, or without this development going through, it would lead to the same issue for future parcels that are in that adjacent area. That was part of the hearing examiner's in his written decision in the packet as well. So that, yeah, it would prevent future development on adjacent parcels. And then regarding the Country Meadows question, Mr. Linson did include that in his initial written letter to the hearing examiner. And I don't believe it was expanded on any more than what was already written. So we decided to leave that in. Anyway, so I have a couple points here that I would like to make. The first is the hearing examiner correctly found that special circumstances did exist. WASDOT denying the property to State Route 507, and that special circumstance was not caused by the applicant. Whenever we are looking at variances and looking at our code, that is the first thing that we do look at. Is it a hardship that was created by the applicant? And in this case, it is not. In this case, the hearing examiner granted the variance not only because the applicant met all the requirements of 18.14.100 regarding the variance, but also the International Fire Code B107. With that, the city submits that the hearing examiner's decision to grant the variance was proper and consistent with applicable standards. The hearing examiner carefully evaluated the application, staff reports, and public comments, and made findings supported by substantial evidence in the record. Staff respectfully recommends that council affirm the hearing examiner's decision.
Thank you. All right, we will now, just give you a reminder to council, it's a closed record appeal, which means the record is closed and new evidence. Your review is strictly limited to the evidence that was presented to the hearing examiner, the hearing examiner's written findings of fact, conclusions of law and decision, legal arguments based on that existing record. Your role tonight is strictly limited to reviewing the decision within the legal framework that I've described. Avoid any reliance on personal opinion, political preference, or public pressure. Make your decision based on the record and the law, nothing else. This is not a new hearing. You may not reweigh the evidence or consider facts not in the record. All right, council discussion. Councilmember Hess.
I have a question for our attorney, because it is a legal question.
Go ahead.
One of the things that seems to be a difference between the two is whether this is a hardship or a constraint. What is I mean, I heard both of them talk about it, and my understanding is that the hardship is nothing that they created. Is that correct? That was my understanding from what they said. The constraint is it's something that was created by the developer. And so what I'm asking right now is if there is this supposed promise of future development going to happen, does that fall under constraint? Or does it fall under hardship?
Fortunately, you don't have to decide that. All you have to decide tonight is whether there was the fact that WashDOT, there was a road there. The WashDOT said, well, we know that it looks like there's a road there, but we're not going to let you use it because it doesn't meet our 600 and some odd foot distance between there. And so is that a hardship that you can't do anything with the property? Or is that a constraint?
But for us, the reason why I'm asking is the hearing examiner went with the variance because it was a hardship, which meant that he made the interpretation of it's a hardship, But yet it's been brought up by the appellant that no, that is a misunderstanding of what a hardship is. And they refer to it as a constraint. So that's why I'm asking, because you can say we don't have to think about it, but
Are you asking for a clarification of the definition?
I'm asking for a clarification of the definition.
So a hardship is one not created by the applicant that prevents a person from using their property as all the other properties in the zone. The constraint, I think it was perfectly put, is a wetland constrains the ability. But for this buffer that I had to have because I butt against a stream, I'd be able to put in 50 homes. I'm constrained by the code that I'm only allowed to put in 39.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Sure.
Other questions, comments? Councilmember Kaminsky.
This is for the developer. It's probably irrelevant to the point.
Hold on. Are we allowed to ask?
Maybe if we could just limit questions to staff or myself, because that would be considered taking testimony.
Let me see if it's relevant. Hold on. Never mind. It's not relevant. It's still a question, but that's not relevant.
Hold on a sec.
Well, do you want to,
I just wanted to ask if this access restriction was known about when the property was purchased.
I guess was that part, I'm gonna let staff who's intimately involved in the record, because that would be a question of whether or not it was raised in the hearing.
Oh, okay.
Andrew, do you want to go ahead and answer that?
That was not part of the hearing. And I don't know that we can answer that because it was not considered as part of the hearing examiner's decision.
Thank you. Councilmember Hess.
The variance was granted, and this is for staff here, because there's going to be put sprinkler systems into the new homes. The existing homes, do they have sprinkler systems as well, or are we about to endanger the existing homes? Because that one road Palisades is what everything is dependent upon.
Let's get it here, hear from our attorney first.
I'll tag team this.
Sounds good. Go back and forth.
So the hearing examiner's decision was not based on sprinklers. Okay, it was based on that a hardship exists, that it wasn't caused by the applicant. And I apologize, I'm missing the other two elements. What tipped the scale for the hearing examiner is not only did he find that there were sufficient grounds to grant a variance, but also the fact that it was being sprinklered, and the fire code, or the International Fire Code, allows for homes of 30-something or more, if they're all sprinkled, to have 2 accesses. So you'll see that it talks about the, what did we say here? It was the general.
I'm looking at Exhibit A, findings of fact, paragraph 2 and paragraph 3. They seem to be all relying upon, this is the hearing examiner's findings and why he made his decision. So I'm honestly asking in that. It says Palisades is sufficient, but then Palisades, if I remember correct, the developer is going to be making adjustments to Palisades and 507. And so my question is, those other homes that are already sitting in that development, maybe not his development, but a previous development, do they have fire sprinklers or not? Because they weren't required.
That's not in the record.
Okay, I understand that whether they have it or not is not in the record, but if he's going to say, well, hey, yeah, we're doing more than 25 dwellings, and those 25 dwellings are these new ones that are added on to Palisades, the previous ones, that 25 dwellings plus whatever bumps it up to 63. Is that correct? In other words, the 25, he can do it. He does not put sprinklers in if there's 25 according to the Yelm Municipal Code.
Right, is this allowed under is this to be considered or not?
I think it's getting at the question as to whether or not the hearing examiner properly
litigated.
in making his decision, did he properly apply the International Fire Code in his decision in determining that the public safety aspect of this project was met? So I think this line of questioning is fair.
Because he doesn't need to get the variance because he's adding 25 houses. And if I remember correct, the Yelm Municipal Code says 25 houses, no problem. But it's because it now bumps it up to 63. As he said, it's the previous homes and now the new ones. It's now gone a bit larger than the number required, which then requires sprinkler systems. And that's my question is, was that even considered? Because I think that is an important thing to consider for public safety and by what he gave the variance for. He justified the variance by saying that there was going to be sprinkler systems.
It might help if we read the bullet point of public safety.
Okay.
So the hearing examiner adequately considered public safety concerns by requiring each home to be equipped with automatic sprinklers. He further found that International Fire Code Section D-107 explicitly permits a single access
Have only one person speaking, please.
to a subdivision so long as homes are installed with automatic sprinklers, or if the fire code officials determine that the access road will connect to future development. This one does both. We take safety seriously. The Palisade Street will now create a loop, which makes it easier for a fire truck to turn around. And as D-107 states, you can meet one or the other. We're requiring both because we don't know, like you said, when future development will occur. However, there's no timeline in the International Fire Code of when the future development will occur or has to occur. So as part of the record, our fire marshal, Chris Vaccaro, also submitted a letter in support of the variance and testified that future road identified on the plat as Road B will connect to the development and State Route 507. So it will, meet International Fire Code. And with the city's comprehensive plan, our lowest zoning designation is R4. That comprehensive plan is adopted by council. The last one was adopted in 2017. R4 is the lowest density residential that we permit within the city. So by having this parcel develop at 4 units per acre and 39 lots meets our comprehensive plan as adopted by council in 2017.
I understand that.
Is there other questions? Councilmember Hess, continue.
But the variance was given to, as was said, to no access to 507, but that was also because if there had been access to 507, that would have allowed Yelm Municipal Code to say, hey, you don't have a problem. The variance, we're not doing the variance against International Fire Code. We're doing it against the Yelm Municipal Code, the Yelm Municipal Building Code. And so that's the variance. Am I not correct? That's the reason why the developer was denied originally, was because of Yelm Municipal Code, which said 2 access roads are needed. And the history is well developed in here. I read the whole thing. And because the developer said, okay, Yelm Municipal Code does not allow me to do it due to a hardship that WashDOT is not allowing me to put my second access road. So because of that, my understanding is he was given a variance to be able to not have to follow Yelm Municipal Code. And so if that is the case, my question is, did the hearing examiner consider the prior houses that are already on Palisades Road that have that one exit to 507, which is the whole point here? Because you can say, yeah, we got 2 roads that go out to Palisades. Palisades is one road that goes to 507. And so if we're going to allow that, He wouldn't have, he didn't have to do that if he was gonna meet Yelm Municipal Code. Those are two roads and Yelm Municipal Code says, hey, you do fire sprinklers. Well, I don't see any consideration for the previous development that is on Palisades. Because if this was the same developer A developed the first set of Palisades and now said, okay, this is going to be stage 2, would we hold them to the standard saying, hey, you didn't quite plan this out, but because another developer is coming onto the exact same road that a previous development is on, I'm wondering, are we holding to the standard that we would? Because there's precedents that we might be setting here, which could turn out to be pretty bad.
Councilmember Crossman.
I move to deny the appeal and affirm the hearing examiner's decision to grant the variance from 18.52.080.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, it's been motioned second to affirm the hearing examiner's decision. Is there any further discussion? Councilmember Hess.
I still haven't gotten the clarification.
What is your question?
My question is, the variance is for Yelm Municipal Code, saying, hey, you don't have to follow that code.
Do we have a more direct?
Councilmember Hess, do you mind is it okay if okay. I was gonna say if I can answer the
Here's a
question.
direct question.
Okay. No, go ahead. Sorry.
Okay, thank you. I would actually say to the contrary. So in his report, it says, although the requested variance will increase the number of residents relying on ingress egress from Palisades Street from 24 to 63 residences. So I believe that answers your question if it was considered or not. He visits the site. In his record, it says 63, so it was considered. Improvements will be made at the intersection to improve its traffic capacity and safety. And then, so anyway, yes, it was considered, and also nowhere in, let's see, how did we phrase this? So the hearing examiner did not replace that 2 road requirement found in 18.52.080 with the 1 road exception. And nowhere in the hearing examiner's decision did he state he granted the variance based on IFCT 107C. The hearing examiner actually went to great extent to explain 18.52.080 and the International Fire Code, and that they are not the same, and specifically concluded that.
Is there any further discussion? It's been motioned and seconded.
There's just one point, I think all of that motion, I think you need to now articulate the error of the findings of this.
Upholding the decision. Are
you upholding?
He moved to uphold.
Oh, I thought you said overruled. I'm sorry.
Affirm the hearing examiner's decision.
Affirm.
Well,
Thank you.
hearing aids.
All right, again, just for the record, the motion was to affirm the hearing examiner's decision. There is more discussion. Councilmember Hess?
Yes. If I could correct you, here is a quote from the hearing examiner's thing. The property site previously contained a single-family residence that was destroyed by fire. Wrong one. The appellant requested access to 507, which was denied. WashDOT believes that the 2 proposed connections to Palisades satisfies the city's requirement, and it's unwilling to provide access directly to 507. Since this is
Councilmember Hess, is there a question in this?
there, oh, here we go. It's actually paragraph 8 is where he does bring up these sprinkler systems.
Is there a question in this?
Yes. My question is, does the fact that this includes the other development, and was the question asked by the hearing examiner, because if he's going to bring that up, that, hey, it's okay because they bring in sprinklers, do the previous development have sprinklers? Did the hearing examiner consider that?
So the question is, did the hearing examiner consider if there were sprinklers in the previous?
Was it even brought up? Well, I mean, because that's a vital thing, but yes, my question is, did he bring that up?
That was not part of the record, from my understanding.
And so nobody brought that up
Is
during,
there another question?
so nobody brought that up, even though it's going requiring the Palisades
Hold on,
Road.
state your point of order.
Call the vote.
I don't believe you can call for the vote if there's still open discussion. Counselor Hess, please continue, but please, if you have a direct point, make it.
The direct point is, the hearing examiner, I feel, did not take into account the additional homes that causes Yelm Municipal Code to all of a sudden be violated.
Okay. Is there anything else? All right, we have a motion second on the table. We'll go ahead and do a roll call vote. Again, this is to affirm the hearing examiner's decision. A yay or an aye affirms. A nay denies this vote. Councilor Wood, how do you vote?
Aye.
Councilor Richardson,
I recuse.
Councilor Crossman,
Yes.
Councilor Kingizer.
Aye.
Councilor Hess,
No.
Councilor Johnstone,
Aye.
Councilor Kaminsky.
Aye.
Motion carries. We have affirmed, the council has affirmed the hearing examiner's decision. Any decision to reverse, modify, or amend must be supported by clear findings that are tied to record law. Your decision has been passed, seconded, and passed by majority vote. With that, I believe we are closing this hearing at 6:56 for the record. All right. That was item B under new business. We will now move on to item C, a professional services agreement with parametrics for Roten Road Northwest Reconstruction Phase 1. Hold on a second. Sure.
How many days do I have? So you'll go 13
Fred?
I don't think we can give legal advice, but I think probably that will come from.
If you send me an email, I'll get to you.
Thank you, guys. All right, moving on again to professional service agreement with parametrics for Roten Road Northwest Reconstruction Phase 1. Cody.
Hello, Council, Mayor. Thank you. In front of you is a professional service agreement with parametrics for Roten Road Northwest Reconstruction. Phase 1 preliminary 60% design. The 60% design is because we need to do that design up to that point to figure out what right of way we need. Once that is done, there'll be an amendment to not only get the rest of the design, but also purchase the right of way. The area through Roten Road, there's quite a few areas that narrow and grow in right of way acquisition. So we need to make sure that we have all the right of way we need for storm swell, sidewalk. This is completely grant funded. So the project right now is $840,000. There is more money for the construction phase that'll be allocated to us from the state and federal government. I'm happy to answer any questions. It's been talked about quite a bit, but if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Are there any questions, Council? Councilmember Hess.
I'd like to move that we authorize Mayor DePinto to sign a professional service agreement with the parametrics in not to exceed amount of $848,735.15 for the Roten Road Northwest Reconstruction Phase 1.
Second by Councilmember Crossman. Is there any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say nay. Motion carries. Good. Moving on to Thurston Economic Development Council, EDC Professional Services Contract. Todd.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Council. In front of you tonight is the Thurston Economic Development Council Professional Services Contract. I know you've had a few presentations from the EDC on this. Specifically, Thurston County EDC Executive Michael Cade gave a presentation to the council on March 11th, 2025, outlining the EDC's 2025 work plan highlights regional partnerships, initiatives, and the organization's role in supporting businesses and fostering economic development in Yelm. The General Government Committee reviewed the professional service contract with the EDC at their meeting on April 22nd. And then the contract was discussed again at the May 6, 2025 study session, and council was informed that the contract would be placed on the meeting tonight. So are there any additional questions? This is in the amount of $10,000 for 2025.
For a motion? Councilor Kaminsky.
Move to approve the professional services contract with Thurston Economic Development Council in the amount of $10,000.
Second by Councilmember Hess. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay.
Nay.
One. Motion carries. Thank you, Council. Thank you, Todd. Moving on to old business. There's none scheduled. Moving along to standing council committee reports, starting with the Public Safety Committee. Moving on to Public Services Committee.
Yes, sir. We had a meeting today. We talked about that coming forward, there'll be a change to the code in regards to annexations that city would propose that we just follow RCWs. So simplify that code. And then changes will just be automatic according to the RCW. And we talked about a nuisance property that will be coming up before us here in a couple weeks. That's from a foreclosure property from the bank. The bank needs a nuisance to be declared so they can move forward with cleaning up their property legally. And then on spring cleanup day, they had 18 dumpsters, which was a new record, followed up and closed up by 11 a.m. So there's a lot of garbage taken out of the area here. That's miscellaneous things we talked about, but that's all the big stuff.
Councilman Rouse?
Question in reference to the spring cleanup, and I think Director Colt would be the one to answer this. So we had 18 containers, 11 a.m. was when they closed up. How many people came after 11?
11:20 was about when they closed. I don't have a count for how many came. Most of the people, what we told people that came earlier in the day, because we've had trouble filling up our dumpsters, is that come after 11 if you have a second load. So we did have 2 people come after 11 that had a second load, and we told them, we didn't guarantee them that it would be open there, and they came by and they understood. And most of them, I think both of them went to the dump, just took their stuff straight to the dump after that. So we had, more dumpsters we ever filled up, like you said, 18. It was crazy. Awesome.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Councilor Crossman? All right, moving on to Finance Committee.
No meeting.
Moving on to General Government Committee.
We met just last hour and discussed the retreat agenda and the policy and procedures.
Great, thank you. Moving on to Mayor, City Minister, staff reports. Todd?
Thank you, Mayor. Just a couple updates. Public Works, they had their last seasonal start today. And we have our last seasonal that will start next Monday in the Recreation Department that will be helping Lynn throughout the spring and summer with activities at the park and whatnot. Splash Pad is working perfectly and in time for great weather. And then the Veterans Memorial and the ceremony that happened yesterday was perfect. And just to say a great job to our Public Works Department for getting that done as fast as they did, and it looks phenomenal. So just wanted to highlight that.
Thank you. Yeah, just to echo on that, the Memorial Day celebration was wonderful. Big kudos to our public services team that really made that happen. Thank you for all that. We also had a couple grand openings, one of them including the Indigo Urgent Care. I'm very happy that their services are now available here in Yelm. And I will be meeting with some of their multi-care for further services. So I'm optimistic the new healthcare service will be in the very near future. Happy for that. Also attended the South Sound Military Community Partnership. Got a briefing from those folks on JBLM. As you know, we were in partnership with JBLM and other cities or in communities around this area of South Sound. One of the big issues that they did want to reiterate is housing. They do have a need for more housing off base. And we are in one of the areas that they absolutely look at and need more housing in. So that is one of them. And the other big one is childcare as well. Childcare is something that we've heard from them for years. And luckily we are one of the more friendly cities regulation wise to open daycares in. Other than that, congratulations, Councilmember Johnstone. Thank you for everyone else that applied for it. It's very difficult to get on here as a appointment. I've gone through the process myself. I was not appointed. I'd say don't give up if you want to go ahead and actually be on the council or serve your city in this way. So thank you for applying and going through that process. All right, moving on to Councilmember reports, starting with Councilmember Kaminsky.
I attended the Nisqually River Council retreat, and after the presentations, we went on a little field trip through the Ohop Valley and saw some of the roads that were broken and the landscape and just learned about their restoration projects. I went to Law and Justice Council and we just reviewed the database that's going to be new for all the court system. And also attended the Indigo ribbon cutting, which is a beautiful, not a big building, but absolutely beautiful. Very, very impressive. So hope nobody gets to use it.
Thank you. Councilmember Johnstone.
No reports.
All right, Councilmember Hess.
From Intercity Transit, the contracts are all good now. In addition, they had their public hearing for the 2026, 2030 transit improvement plan. As they continue to work through it, when it gets ready for a vote, I will do my best to get a good copy of it to send to fellow council members and to staff so that everybody can look at and see if everything's being addressed appropriately for the city of Yelm. So I know how to advocate. I was at the Veterans Memorial for the Memorial Day celebration. Thank you very much for that. It looks really nice, and I cannot wait to see the new Memorial Park developed and put into place. That having the capability of being able to walk around and actually reflect on would be really nice. And I will be hopefully with Director Colt help out with some of the Gold Star members that are actually from Yelm, just to make sure that we have them in the right spot. And then other than that, for the people who applied, thank you for applying. As Mayor said, it is difficult to go through that process. And as I used to communicate to a lot of people out there, if you're going to campaign, if you're campaigning, campaign, but if you're not going to be running, don't forget you wanted to come to this position because you were wanting to advocate for something. So become the advocate. You're no longer in campaign mode or trying to get on. Become the advocate and advocate and keep and let us know what we need to do to help out the community. Other than that, nothing else.
Thank you. Councilmember King-Heiser.
I took 2 more classes through the AWC to just keep bettering myself in this position. I also got to attend the memorial. Beautifully done. I am still kind of stunned how quickly those bricks were able to be cleaned up. I got to see them at Public Works after they were taken out, and they're beautiful. The benches, the monument, it was pretty fabulous. I spent some time over at Public Services learning a little bit more about infrastructure and property lines and things like that. And once again, blown away just how informative a quick little visit can be to any of those department heads. That's it.
Thank you. Councilmember Crossman.
All right, so I was in Bloomington, Indiana last week, so I missed the breakfast with military partners, but I do encourage, because that is open to all council, right?
Correct. Any elected.
So I encourage you guys to attend that if you haven't yet. It's a good, huge, a lot of people there to meet and greet. I look forward to it. But I did make it back in time to attend the Blue Star marker dedication ceremony over here at Tim's. And I found it interesting that they are putting them on Google Maps so people can travel and see each one. They can make a whole day or whatever trip out of it. I thought it was kind of interesting. I never thought about that. And then Mr. Johnstone and his son joined me and majority of my kids. And we picked up trash off a mile stretch of Yelm from Fort Stevens to the Pine Cone. And compared to every year I do this on spring cleanup day, this was the longest we've gone, farthest distance, and the least amount of trash we picked up. So good job to Yelm for not dumping trash all over the side of the roads and trails and stuff.
All right, thank you. Councilmember Richardson.
Again, thank you to all the applicants that applied for the vacancies. It's such a remarkable opportunity for us to have such a hard decision to make because there's such qualified people. Now you can see that congratulations, David Johnstone, and as I'm glad that your wife could, show you the way how to be a public servant. So it's good as who can say as a kid, both my parents have served as a city council member for my city. I mean that's a good thing to say. So congratulations.
Councilmember Wood.
I don't have a report. I'd just like to let everyone know that we have our retreat this weekend and out at Ocean Shores, and it's open to the public. So if anybody'd like to come out and enjoy our interactions and get to know the council, we'll be out there.
All right, thank you. Moving on, there is no executive session. Is there a motion to adjourn?
To adjourn.
Is there a second? Is there a second?
Second.
I think we got Councilmember Wood second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay. We are adjourned.
That's what got me. I'm like,